Good morning. Welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Reverend David Kramer, minister at this church. Helping with today's service are Alex Chilson, our musician, and Michael Morrell, our technician. A couple of things to lift up before we begin. In the email messages that came out on Friday and also again on Monday and Tuesday coming up is an announcement for a reparations workshop being offered by Black Lives Matter to Unitarian Universalists, the 5 congregations in the Milwaukee area. And so please take a look at that. It is an online workshop set for Saturday, June 5th. The following day, June 6th, will be our Flower Communion live and in person at Frame Park in the amphitheater. I hope that you are able to join us for that. Our annual meeting will be the following Sunday, June 13th, which will be done by Zoom. And then we will resume online worship for the remainder of the summer. This month, our theme is story. We're going to continue that today by telling some stories. I'll tell some personal stories that mean something to me. But in the weeks ahead, we need your stories, particularly stories from the last year, stories of the pandemic. Happy, sad, funny, tragic things, whatever happened to you. We'll put these together in the May 30th service. So between now and May 30th, please email me a story or a photograph, or if you are brave, record yourself on your phone and send that to me too. We'll make something out of those. If you don't do that, Meg Whaley is going to have a lot of time to fill, so please do so. Our call to worship today comes from Walt Whitman in the back of the gray hymnal from Song of the Open Road. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road, healthy, free, the world before me. Henceforth I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune. Strong and content, I travel the open road. I inhale great draughts of space, the east and the west are mine, and the north and the south are mine. All seems beautiful to me. I can repeat over to men and women, you have done such good to me. I would do the same for you. Whoever you are, come travel with me. However sweet these laid up stores, however convenient this dwelling, we cannot remain here. However sheltered this port, and however calm these waters, we must not anchor here. Together, the inducements shall be greater. We will sail pathless and wild seas. We will go where winds blow, waves dash, and the Yankee clipper speeds by under full sail. Forward, after the great companions, and belong to them. They too are on the road. Onward to that which is endless, as it was beginningless. To undergo much, tramps of days, rests of nights, to see nothing anywhere but what you may reach it and pass it. To look up or down no road, but it stretches and waits for you. To know the universe itself as a road, as many roads, as roads for traveling souls. And now if you have a chalice, I invite you to light it along with us or join in the words that we say each week. May this flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Here together we scatter and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community. And now let's sing together. Alex will lead us in hymn number 298 from the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses.
Senses and hear the earth call, feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Keep
So our first story today comes from a book of fables by Arnold Lobel that I have had for a very long time. We read these fables to our children when they were young. And the one I want to relate today is The Mouse at the Seashore. A mouse told his mother and father that he was going on a trip to the seashore. "We are very alarmed," they cried. "The world is full of terrors. You must not go." "I have made my decision," said the mouse firmly. "I have never seen the ocean, and it is high time that I did. Nothing can make me change my mind." "Then we cannot stop you," said Mother and Father Mouse, "but do be careful." The next day, at the first light of dawn, the mouse began his journey. Even before the morning had ended, the mouse came to know trouble and fear. A cat jumped out from behind a tree. "I will eat you for lunch," he said. It was a narrow escape for the mouse. He ran for his life, but he left a part of his tail in the mouth of the cat. By afternoon, the mouse had been attacked by birds and dogs. He had lost his way several times. He was bruised and bloodied. He was tired and frightened. At evening, the mouse slowly climbed the last hill and saw the seashore spreading out before him. He watched the waves rolling onto the beach, one after another. All the colors of the sunset filled the sky. "How beautiful!" cried the mouse. "I wish that Mother and Father were here to see this with me." The sun and the moon and the stars began to appear over the ocean. The mouse sat silently at the top of the hill. He was overwhelmed by a feeling of deep peace and contentment. And because these are fables, each one comes with a moral. The moral of this story is all the miles of hard road are worth a moment of true happiness. Please join me in a moment of quiet reflection, meditation, prayer. I am not so sure about the moral of the mouse story. I'm not sure that hardship is always worth it. And I'm quite sure things do not always work out in the end. Right now, the people in India and Brazil are in my thoughts, and I hope they are in your thoughts and prayers as well. Here in the United States, it feels like we might be at the sunset of the pandemic. There is a sense of relief, also some stress. We have been holding our breath for a year, finally able to exhale, which means there's some bad air floating around there. Psychologists tell us to brace for another wave of emotional upset. What I do hope is that we settle into things not as they used to be, but as they might be now. I, for one, have come to like wearing a mask when I step out of my apartment into the stale air of the hallway in our building. I'm not so much worried about picking up a virus as I have now been introduced to and gotten used to an accessory that in some small way improves my life. I've also gotten used to not spending so much money on restaurants or movies, and I've not driven the car so much, which is better for the earth. One thing that we have noticed here in this church is that the conversation during Zoom coffee hour has actually gotten deeper than the conversation we used to have around tables in the church basement. In a spirit of change and new life, may we survive our hardships. May we hold in our hearts those we love and who love us. May we see beauty around us wherever we are, and may we find peace. Let's sing together once again, hymn number 1020 in the Teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya. Alex will lead us.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows how we are going, but we will within. We will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Each week we share joys and sorrows, milestones in our individual lives, ways to keep us connected here in this congregation. This week, I want to report that Rick Blahn and Emma Keppel have planted a wedding tree, a bur oak. You can find a picture of it in Tuesday's email post. They are planning a small backyard wedding in July. Also, Lou Shepard, who was hospitalized last week following a heart attack, is back home now with her daughter Sandy and husband Chuck. They can use some meals. We have made a plea, and if you are willing to cook or purchase a meal, send me an email and we will coordinate. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share, please call me, send me an email. It is important that we stay connected in this way. And let's please hold all of these joys and these sorrows in our hearts and minds, and all of those that remain unspoken in the days and weeks ahead. Alex will lead us in singing Walking with You.
Walking with you, walking with you is our prayer.
So as I said at the beginning, we are telling stories this month. And I decided that I would tell some of my old stories that you might have heard if you have heard me talking around a campfire or in small groups or in other places. These are the stories that make up who I am, and I hope that you can find some meaning in them as well. Today's story is even older than the story that I told you last week, and I used this the first time around, or parts of it, in a service in November of 2016, shortly after I first arrived here. So for some of you, there may be some echoes. When I was 19 years old, in my sophomore year, I quit college and left for the West Coast, hitchhiking, because it was the thing to do and because in those days you still could. It did not seem threatening then, but now I am aware that I took some significant risk, and at the same time I was perhaps better off than most because of who I am, a white, heterosexual, middle-class, well-educated male. at the very top of the privileged food chain. I did not think this back at the time. Back then, I saw myself as kind of an everyman, common, working class even. But as much as I tried to renounce any claim to status, I nevertheless presented a picture to drivers that carried a bunch of assurances. So I was lucky. I set out with no real goal or direction, just a friend who lived out west and a wish to be on my own. A good sense of American autonomy filled my coming of age. I thought of myself as my own person, completely independent, self-reliant. I had my leather boots, a flannel shirt, blue jeans, and a backpack with a sleeping bag, a small amount of food, warm and dry clothes, and $50 in my pocket, ready for anything. Of course, the act of hitchhiking itself relies on the good graces of others, and so I came to appreciate the sense of community that emerged. One winter, I crossed the top of the country on I-94, and I did not sleep on the ground once. Each night, I would keep thumbing into the dark. Eventually, some driver would ask where I planned to sleep that night, and I would tell him, oh, under an overpass or something, and every night, whoever was driving would say, that's awful, come sleep at my house. On another day, this time in May, under clear blue skies, I was on my way back from California to Wisconsin when I got what I think of now as the greatest hitchhike ride ever. I began the day with a short hop into Nevada, dropped off in the middle of nowhere. It was still early, but I stood there for a long time with very little traffic. The day was warm, but I was beginning to get a little frustrated. All of a sudden, a big Winnebago, a camper, wheeled over to the side of the road in front of me. It was a rule in those days that Winnebagos never picked up hitchhikers. Too much room inside, I guess. Volkswagens jammed with hippies and guitars and dogs, they would stop for you, but not Winnebagos. So I was instantly suspicious. Maybe he had engine trouble or something, but out of the side door reeled a guy about 10 years older than me, with long, greasy hair, 3 days worth of beard, and a kind of a wild look in his eyes. "Can you drive?" he says. "Got a driver's license? Let me see it." I showed him my license, got inside, and found a young woman, maybe 18, same age as me, driving the van. My host set me down on a bench and kept on with these kind of loud, short questions. "Ever hear of the song In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida? Ever hear of the band Iron Butterfly? I'm the drummer." Turns out, or so he said, the woman at the wheel was a backup singer. They had just gotten married in Las Vegas, and they were driving this van to Chicago, where they were to catch an airplane and fly off to somewhere, who knows where. And they wanted me to drive so they could honeymoon in the back. Now, I do not believe in destiny. I will not tell you that everything happens for a reason. Sometimes things just happen. But sometimes, when they do, the circumstances seem to line up in really amazing ways. So what I will tell you is, serendipity rocks. This was 1978, 10 years after Iron Butterfly first screamed out, "In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida." But it was still in the days when there were actual hippies, and not only were there people who lived alternative lifestyles, there were also people who lived in alternative worlds in their own heads, even as there are now. So I had no idea whether he was who he said he was, but I do know that I was in a large van with bologna sandwiches, and we were on our way to Chicago, all the way across the country, one ride with a CB radio going and a wild man in the back who would crawl out from time to time and take big slugs from a gallon of gin and peer out the window and growl, "Where are we?" Indeed, somewhere east of Eden, I think. Sometimes things did not go well. I remember angling up through Utah and Nevada with a guy who was despondent over a romantic breakup, and he had a gun under the seat, and he talked about using it. I just kept talking and listening and watching him closely, and it turned out okay. Another time, I remember being stuck just outside of Spokane, Washington, in pouring rain, absolutely soaked, late at night, so wet I wasn't sure anyone would ever let me into their car like a wet dog, making up a bad song in my head, Spokane, Spokane, what am I doing out here in the rain, trying to get Spokane and rain to rhyme, and it wasn't working. I spent 2 years, more or less, on the road. I worked odd jobs, picked apples, washed dishes, dug ditches. I hiked the mountains, visited cities, learned to cook. And I developed a kind of an ethic. I never swore at anyone who would not pick me up. I always thanked the people who did. And while I was in the car, I did my best to hold up my end of the conversation. I lived with friends for a while in a lean-to on the side of a mountain and in my first real apartment. And through it all, I came to learn that people and the world are essentially good if you let them be. Which is another way of saying everyone has inherent worth and dignity. Of course, there is potential for evil, for bad faith, broken relationships, real harm, but that maybe naive faith in people has remained in me even now. This is basic universalism. We're not born bad, not born with some rotten spot inside. We are not destined to fail. Life is not a test of who is really worthy. It is not a lesson in how miserable we are, how beholden to an angry God, or how dependent we are on some magic potion to cure us of our sin-sick souls. We are destined, if I can use that word, for a life of possibility, a life of hope. After a long time on the road, I also came to realize that life would last a while, and that I could set some goals and maybe even achieve them, like finishing college, for example. So I came back. I remember the return clearly, back at my parents' house in Chippewa Falls. I had been back and forth several times in that period, but this time it was clear I was back. While I had been away, my parents had converted my bedroom into a den. Like, what? I guess when I ditched them for 2 years, they thought I was serious. So this time, they set up a cot in the basement for me. Just before bed, Mom came down to give me a hug I will remember for the rest of my life. And in that moment, it dawned on me just how much I had troubled them and how glad they were that I was back. I don't know if that's some kind of growth point for children, the time when they first realize that their parents are real people too, with hopes and fears of their own, and that you are a part of that, but a part they can't completely control, and so it's going to be up to you to honor that relationship, to hold up your end of the conversation. It is entirely likely that you have realizations about your own parents that are different than mine. But that's how it was for me. So that's the Mother's Day portion of this sermon. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Anyway, the next 20 years went a lot faster. I got a degree, met Mary, got married, started a career, had kids, bought cars, did not hitchhike anymore. There are probably lots of warm, fuzzy lessons here. Life's a journey, what a ride. You might not get picked up again, so be glad for this one, wherever it takes you. Be kind, be polite. You live by grace, be gracious in return. It is not the cars that pass by that are important, it's the ones that stop. I lived with some pretty rough people in those days, people who lived certainly outside the law, outside of social rules, people with complicated pasts that gave their lives curious twists and knots, holes you did not want to poke into for fear of what might come out. And still they cared for one another. They cared for me. So inside of this big adventure, it was both an exercise in independence and a realization of connection. Sometimes I think that's the legacy of our two movements, Unitarianism and Universalism, to think for yourself and to care for one another, to recognize your connection with everything around you, and to live like you respect that relationship. So that's it. Those are my rules of thumb. Don't swear at people who don't pick you up. Say thank you to the ones who do, and hold up your end of the conversation. Let's sing together again. Hymn number 295 in the gray hymnal, Sing Out Praises. Alex?
Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on, searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the earth fire pilgrims new. Find the Spirit, always restless, find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that ancient yearning, kindling for a new-found truth. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Earth behind us, wayside hostel, built by those who knew wild roads. Guard we ere their sacred embers, carried in our minds and hearts.
Next week, I will be on the road again, sort of. Next week's service will be our Mad Libs style service from the spring fundraiser, in which people from the congregation got to choose where I will be, what I will be wearing, and what I will be speaking about. I'm going to tell you that where I will be is in Kinstone, which is a kind of a artist's grotto area near Fountain City, Wisconsin. You will have to tune in to see what I will be wearing and what I will talk about. And now, wherever you go this week, know that you are loved. Seek justice, find peace. Alex, please send us out.
On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world is turning our way. Oh, and our way is on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. road again.